Hello everyone and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux and today I'm going to show you how to choose the best sky for a sky replacement using Luminar AI. There are a lot of things that you might want to take into consideration when choosing a sky for a sky replacement, such as the direction of light, the quality of the light, and I'm going to walk you through and show you some of the things I look for to make sure my sky replacements look natural and make my images look their best. Before we get started, I want to say hello to Wolfgang, German, Joseph, Jerry, Pat. So good to see everyone today. I see that Jerry has gray skies today, so sky replacements are great if you're out photographing on a somewhat dreary day and you want to spice it up a little bit. Let me show my screen and we'll get started. So we've got this beautiful image from Kuma Sevik. He's one of our ambassadors, and it was captured of the beautiful castle of Neuschwanstein in Germany. And let me show you the before image here. There's the before, which isn't bad. It's actually a pretty nice image. There's some detail in the sky that with a little bit of work, you could bring it out. But if you want to completely change the mood of an image, popping in a different sky and working with the lighting in the scene, you can really spice it up and make it something a lot more magical. So let me show you how I did it. I'm going to start by right-clicking on the image, go to adjustments and revert this to the original. And I'm going to start with a template, one of my favorite templates. I'm going to actually have it here in my favorites category, but if you haven't yet marked it as a favorite, you can do that under scenery. And this one here called Fast Fix, you can see that little heart is filled in. I already marked it as a favorite. So to make things faster for my future edits, I can now just go into favorites and choose Fast Fix. And you'll see that this automatically gives this image an extra little pop of contrast, a little pop of color, and gives us a better starting point. So what I'm going to do from there is go into the Edit tab. And first, let's take a look at the sky that this image has in there naturally. So I'm going to start here with the Enhance AI. We can see that some Accent AI was already added and a little bit of Sky Enhancer. If we pull that up, look at how that sky that's naturally there, it brought out a lot of detail. If this were my image, I don't know that I would actually change the sky. But if this wasn't a look you were happy about or you wanted to get something a little bit brighter and spicier, doing a sky replacement is one way to do that. So I'm actually going to bring that Sky Enhancer back down to 0 and work with this image. We're going to go straight down to our Sky AI. Now in Sky AI, we have our Sky Selection menu, and this is where you go to choose which sky you want to have in there. If you click on this drop-down menu at the top, I'm going to just select all skies, and then I can see every sky that I have loaded in the program. Now I can scroll down the list, and some of the things that I want to pay attention to are the direction of the light and the placement of the sun. So if we look at our image as a whole, we can see the light is coming in from the right side of the image. It's hitting the right side of the castle, this rock face over here. So we want to make sure that whatever sky we pop in there has the lighting coming from the same direction. If, on the other hand, we popped in a sky that had a sunset like right here in the middle, the lighting is obviously going to be wrong, and it's going to be a dead giveaway that it's a replacement. You can see here, quick question here in the chat. Whenever I'm trying to clone, my photo goes back to the original form. Why does this happen in Luminar AI? That's because it's by design. That's the way it's designed to work. And you're going to be actually cloning in from the original pixels, so it takes you back to the original image for you to clone with. Now, if you have an expectation of the software working a little bit differently, send us an email at support@skylum.com. Let us know what you expect and why, and our developers will take a look at that, and they can always reevaluate, and it might inspire some changes in the future. So thank you so much for that feedback. Okay, back to the image. Let's take a look here at some of the skies we have available. Now, as I scroll down the list, I'm seeing lots of things here that I don't really think would work well. Just to kind of illustrate what I mean by paying attention to the direction of the light, I'm going to grab this one here where the sun is directly in the middle of that. You can see the sunlight is up here, and where that light is coming from doesn't match the light hitting the side of the castle. So it's not a good match for this image. I can't think of any reason why I would use this particular sky for this image. It just doesn't fit well. So let's go ahead and keep scrolling down here. And let's try something like this. All right, Streaky Sunrise Streak. This one's a little better, but you can see the sunlight is still directly behind the mountains, which makes it a little hard to believe that the light is hitting this side of the castle, all of this foliage up here, and this side of the rock. So again, it's really not a great fit. Let's try this one here. All right, that one's a little better. We can see our sunlight is over here on this side and it's coming across this way. So that's a much better fit. Hey, Russell, so glad you made it. With regard to the cloning and that it doesn't work that way in Luminar 4, that's correct, because when you launch the clone and stamp tool in Luminar 4, it actually creates a new image layer, which embeds all of the changes you've made up into that point. With Luminar AI, we don't have layers, so that's why it goes back to the original image. Hope that helps. Hello, Ahmet. You like Luminar 4 better than Luminar AI? It's certainly a matter of personal preference. I personally like Luminar AI better than Luminar 4 because we have some really great features such as this visual selection for skies. I know you can do sky replacement in Luminar 4 as well, but there are a lot of under the hood improvements that are in Luminar AI as far as sky replacement that you're not going to find in Luminar 4. So certainly it depends on what you like to do and the types of images you're working on, which one is the better fit for your workflow. If you're having a hard time choosing between Luminar 4 and Luminar AI, one thing to know is they both can run side by side on your computer. You can have both and use both. And we also have free trials available for both of them, so you can always download the trial of both and see which one fits you better. Obviously, there's not any one software that is a one-size-fits-all for everyone, so I encourage you to test it out, see what works best for you. All right, back to today's picture. So we've picked a sky that I think actually suits this scene really well. We have the light coming in from the side. It's very conceivable that that light could be hitting the castle here, hitting this hillside, hitting this cliff face over here. I think that looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and select that sky. And I'm going to bring my vertical offset down a little bit because you'll see we had a little bit of a gap here in the mountains. I might even bring it down a little bit more and then bring up that blending so we get a really natural transition in those areas. Bring that down maybe even a little bit more. That's too much, a little too much. That looks perfect. All right, from there, I also want to bring to your attention here this flip. If the sky had the sun coming from the opposite direction, it still might work for this image because we can always click that flip it around, and that changes the direction of the light. So as you can see right now, it's a mismatch because we have the light coming in from the left, but the lighting in the image is from the right. So we flip that back around and it fits. Now let's go down to our scene relighting. And this is where we get to be a little bit creative and really spice up the image and start to make this really feel like it's a cohesive image, not a sky replacement. I'm going to pull up that relight strength quite a bit, and that's going to bring in some of those purples and oranges and pinks into the lighting, into the foreground to make that better match my scene. There we go. I think that looks really, really nice. We can also bring up that relight saturation, and that's going to bring in even more of those pinks and purples into that light. That's looking really good. Let's take a look at so far. There's our before and our after. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Now we don't have any reflections to deal with in this image, so I'm going to skip right down to sky adjustments. First thing I want to do here is I want to bring up that defocus just a little bit. This slider is very, very sensitive, so use it with a very, very light touch. It's great for when you have something with a shallow depth of field, you put in a sky replacement. It's going to look really awkward if you have a very blurred horizon and very sharp clouds. In a photo like this where we have a lot of clarity all the way through, we don't want to blur the clouds too much because you would still see a lot of detail in this naturally. I'm going to leave grain alone. I am going to bring up my atmospheric haze quite a bit. And the reason for that is we have a lot of haze on these mountains here, and I want to make the haze in the sky blend in with that. You can warm up the sky if you want a little bit or cool it down. I think right in the middle is good. If you ever move a slider and you just want to reset that slider, go ahead and move it and then double click that handle. It puts it right back to 0. Same with brightness. You could brighten that up just a tiny bit, not too much. And I think that blends really, really nicely. So let's take a look here at our before and our after. Managed to really nicely spice up this image. Now, if I scroll back up to the top and go back to my Enhance AI, we have the sky enhancer back at 0. Once you put in a sky, you can also enhance the sky that you placed. So as I move this up, you can see that it's actually enhancing the sky that we put in there, not the original. So bringing that up looks really good. I might also add a little bit of structure, and that's going to give a bit of dimension to the clouds, bring out a little bit of mid-tone contrast there in the mountains. And let's see, let's do a vignette to soften those edges, bring their eye right into that castle. I'll pull my amount slider down to -100, make that size a bit smaller. Go into my advanced settings, down here to the feather, I'm going to bring that up quite high, maybe even a little bit more. And a little bit of inner light that's just going to bring the eye and focus it in on our subject there in the middle. And we can click on choose subject and really get this position quite precisely right where we want it. I think that looks pretty good. And now I'll grab my amount slider and pull that back up to where it looks natural. And I think for this image, right about there looks good. Now I'm almost finished with this photo, but the last thing I want to do is darken up this foreground. I know that that's where the light's hitting it, but right now this is kind of the brightest area of the image and my eye kind of gets stuck here as I look at the image, and I really want my eye to go straight to the castle. To fix that, I'm going to go to local masking, click add and basic, and where it says paint mask, I'm going to click on that drop down menu and choose a gradient, and I'm going to draw a gradient up from the bottom left corner, so maybe right about there. And then I'll choose my exposure and I'll just bring that down ever so slightly to take the edge off of that corner. Maybe right about there. I think that looks good. It's a really subtle change, but it tends to just draw you into the middle of the image. So we can turn that off and back on again. You see what a big difference that makes in where the eye tends to travel in a photo. So overall, there's our before and our after. So the biggest points that I want to recap here with this image, when you're replacing the sky, is pay attention to the direction of the light, pay attention to the quality of the light. So if you have natural lighting in an image coming from the middle of the screen, let's say it's coming, you have a sunset straight at the horizon, but it's an otherwise bland sky, try to pick a sky selection that has the sun right there in the middle. If the light is coming from the left or coming from the right, pay attention to that, look at where the shadows are falling, and that's going to give you an idea of where to place that light source. And it's going to make your sky replacements look much, much more natural. The other thing to pay attention to is that relighting. So if I go back over here to my Sky AI tool, these relighting sliders are going to give you a very nice blending of the light from the sky and the light in your foreground. And then pay attention to these sky adjustments down here, particularly the atmospheric haze. I tend to use that with a pretty heavy hand, and I think it makes a really big difference in making sure that an image looks natural and believable. Hello, Joe. Glad you're able to join us today. All right. So Wolfgang said if the light comes from the wrong side, can't one mirror it? Absolutely. We did talk about that, and that was that flip checkbox right there. All right. So again, there's the before and the after. It really makes a huge difference in the overall feel of the image. Not that the original was a bad image, like I showed at the beginning. You could totally work with the sky and make a really, really nice photo. But we were able to change it up and make it believable by popping in that other sky. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you got some good tips out of it. If you enjoyed the edit, make sure you give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. Our producers love seeing that. Make sure if you have any questions, pop them into the chat or into the comments below, and I'll do my best to go back and get those answered for you. With that, I'm going to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for spending some time with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.